So one of the things which Bruce came up with these English flies was to put use seal's fur as the tag. Now he used red seal's fur. I sometimes will use orange seal's fur. Seal's fur as a tag. If you're going to tie a red tag, I would never tie another fly with a wool tag, because what it does, it gives you the right colour, but it gives you the buoyancy at the back end of the hook. So for a fly like the carrot, just gives it that extra buoyancy, because the carrot, I mean, it works static, but it also works tremendously as a pulling fly. So when you use a dubbing material as a tag, you just tie in as you would anything else, give it a bit of a pluck, and there you go, you've got a super buoyant tag with all sorts of different colours to it. It really is a fantastic material. Now, not all clarets are created equal. I mean, in terms of colour and dyeing. Ross Pullen years ago was importing seal's fur pretty much by the shoebox full, and I've still got a lot of it. So it's just that colour. I use claret a lot. Pretty much, if I had to pick a colour to fish for my life with a fly, it'd be claret. Now,
that's quite a red claret.
Yep.
To the one that I use anyway.
Yeah, so you might use a darker claret, like that.
Yeah.
Burgundy.
So you reckon that redder one's a better colour?
I like it as a dry fly. Yep. So when I tie the claret dabbler a bit later, I'll tie it with that darker stuff.
Yeah, okay.
When I tie a fly called the hatch breaker, I tie it with this darker stuff, and I'll tie that one next. So the trick is with this is to get that body tapered. And you can't get the taper unless you build it up slowly. So little and often with seal's fur, if it's not going on properly for you, give it a rub in your palm like I was talking about before.
Roll a few smokes.
Yeah, well, I used to do that. Used to smoke 80 a day at one stage. Used to get home after night shift on full choke. It's at the time I was married to my first wife, who didn't fish. She badgered me for 6 months to give up smoking. And I was working shift work at the time, and smoking 80 a day, loved it. Anyway, finally gave up, went to the doctor, got the patches, all that sort of thing, gave up smoking, and I reckon within 6 weeks of my last cigarette, she'd started smoking.
Payback, was it?
Oh, well. I came out the winner in the end, so it didn't matter.
What hook was that, Neil?
Sorry?
What hook was that?
That's the Camazan, not the Camazan, the Tiemco 102Y, so the number 11. Hackles with this, just the roughest, dodgiest old hackle, because it's not a hackle fly. The hackle just really just gives it something to push in the water. I've got these old saddle hackles, used to buy them from Ross for about $5. You really only just need a couple of turns. It can be, it's just, that's all it really is. It's just a wiggly old hackle.
So is that a hen or still cock?
Pass. I think it's cock, but a very effeminate one. Sorry, that's probably not politically correct. And again, I'll leave plenty of space with this at the head because I'm going to put a hot spot on it.
It's a sort of a furnace colour, or?
Yeah, brown. I'm not very particular. It's just as long as it's brown.
Yep.
And 3 turns of that, and that's plenty.
It's more like a soft hackle.
Yep, yep, because you want that bit of movement. And I just pull them back. There you go.
Where do you use this fly?
This fly, I've used it as a sight fishing fly. I used to use it as a polarising and tailing fly on Arthur's Lake. Don't be mistaken, Arthur's Lake was, hopefully will be again, one of the best wade polarising venues in the Highlands, particularly up the eastern shore of Brazendale. If any of you know the backside of the island, you'll know pretty much where I'm talking about. But also tailing fish love it. caught lots of tailing fish in the Western Lakes on a claret carrot. King William, love King William. But in Arthur's Lake, typically it was conceived as a loch-style dry fly, and typically we fished it on the top dropper. So we'd fish an orange carrot in the middle, claret carrot on the top, and a possum emerger on the point. And we'd tie those 3 flies on at the beginning of the season and take them off at the end, really. It was difficult to go away from those 3 flies. Again, the reason I've left the head a bit skinny, can you see that all right? Is it showing up all right? Is because we're going to give it one of these. And this is the real lift to it. This really makes the fly, in my view. And again, this is Bruce Gibson at his best. Can't claim credit. When it comes to fly tying, I'm a great plagiariser of other people's flies. I don't reckon I've ever come up with an original fly that was any good myself. Whoops. There we go. There you are. Guaranteed trout poison, that.
So alternative red.
Alternative red tag. I've used them with a black tag just to give it a bit of extension. Black tag works well. Righto, so I'm going to tie and house the Glister Tag. It's just a generalist type of dry fly, searching dry fly, very good in a beetle fall. The origins of the fly stem back to a fella called Chris Hill, who was one of the, I guess, that leading group of trout guides during the 90s and early 2000s. Anyway, so Chris Hill came up with this fly, and Christopher Bassano put me onto it. It's got a lot of colour in it. It's a very, very good fly, like I was saying, for the beetles, but it's just a bloody good fly just for hanging out there and having a look. It's sort of a bit like a red tag on steroids. So I'm tying this one a little bit bigger than I normally would, just so it looks a bit better on the camera. Normally I tie this on a size 13 or a size 14. The trick with a Glister tag is the glister, but the glister's only half of it. The real part of it is mixing seal's fur with glister. So 50-50 red seal's fur and red glister. And I just mix up the two, I just pinch it together like that. And then I'll give it a rub in my hand. So it's a really bright fly. It's sort of counterintuitive in many ways that it'd be a good fly for the Western Lakes, but it really is. It goes very, very well. It's one of those flies that we used to use a lot on Lake Ada. So Ada's a good polaroiding water. When we were guiding, used to do a lot of boat polaroiding there. If we could get under the bridge, we'd fish Ada Lagoon a bit, or a lot. But later in the day when you've lost the light and you still don't want to go home, this is a good fly for just drifting around those edges, just parking out there, probably fish it in a team with something else. Probably want a little bit more glister in that, I reckon. It's just something that gives them the chance to come up and eat it. I've used this fly a lot, and we used to use it a lot on Arthur's Lake when we were guiding, particularly during the beetle falls, and particularly on the eastern side of Arthur's Lake. John and I were only talking a little bit earlier about how the eastern side of a lot of our lakes is neglected, and Arthur's Lake is prime of those waters which is neglected on the eastern side. So most people hate easterly winds. I love easterly winds. If I had to pick my favourite day in the Highlands, it would be a bright easterly on Arthur's Lake. Two reasons for that. One is pretty much get the lake to yourself because everyone's decided it's no good. But the opportunities on the eastern side with beetle falls and so on is incredible. Woods Lake's the same, but Woods Lake, as John and I were talking about it a minute ago, with the black spinners as well. Again, very much a generous hackle. It's really nothing too flash. This is just the tail end of a saddle hackle off a pretty cheap one. Doesn't need a lot of hackle. It's just a fly that the fish just want to eat. And again, doesn't need much. 3 turns is loads. Now quite often when I'm tying in a hackle, what I'll do with the dubbing, I'll just continue the dubbing just very lightly towards the eye of the hook, and what that does is it just helps the hackle stand up at right angles. Sometimes when you're winding hackle on a hard surface, it goes all over the place, so it's just a bit of a cheat. Pretty sure the fish don't care and I don't either, so that's why we do it, and it gives you a reasonable result. This is one of those flies you're probably just overdoing it if you put a hot spot on it. Considering it's got a glow bright number 4 tail, which is about as probably enough brightness as you'll need. The good thing about this in a beetle fall is it's different. One of the frustrating things about beetle falls is that they never fall usually in small numbers. There's usually bloody millions of them. So my view with that is you want something which stands out from the pack. You want something that looks different. It's the cherry in the plate of the peas.